My daughter passed away 7 years ago, or so I believed. Every January, I sent her husband $40,000, money I earned running a small grocery store with aching hands and sleepless nights. I did it for my granddaughter. I did it for my wife, who passed from grief believing our daughter was gone, and I did it for the daughter I thought I had already buried. Then, one quiet afternoon at the park, my 7-year-old granddaughter grabbed
Don't
my
look
sleeve and
now,
whispered,
but I
"Grandpa,
think someone's
please stop
watching
sending him
us."
money. Come to the house and see." I did exactly what she said, and what I saw there nearly stopped my heart. Before we go any further, thank you for being here. Welcome to the Revenge Diaries. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your life? Tell me in the comments where you are watching from today. Your support helps me expose these stories. Also, a gentle reminder: some elements have been altered for narrative purposes, but the truth behind the message is meant to help. I'm Stephen Harper. I'm 68 years old, and for the past 7 years I've been doing my best to hold what's left of my family together. That means every other Saturday I take my granddaughter, Ivy, she's 7, to Riverside Park for ice cream. Chocolate chip for, me. Strawberry swirl for her. It's our routine. Has been since her mother passed. Willow was my daughter, my only child. 7 years ago, she was lost in a terrible accident on Route 9. The vehicle went off the road. They told us the damage was too severe for an open casket. We cremated what was left. 6 months later, my wife Gloria passed away too. The doctors called it a heart attack, but I knew the truth. Losing Willa destroyed her. So now, it's just me, Ivy, and her father Brad, my son-in-law. Brad's raising Ivy alone, and I help out. $40,000 a year, every January, for the past 7 years. It's what family does. That September afternoon at the park seemed normal enough. Ivy sat beside me on our usual bench, kicking her light-up sneakers. She smiled that same smile Willa used to have. For a moment, everything felt okay. Then, she stopped smiling. "Grandpa." Her voice dropped to a whisper. She glanced over her shoulder toward the playground, then leaned in close. "Please stop sending money." I blinked. "What? The money to Daddy?" Her little hand gripped my sleeve, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. "Please stop. There's something you need to see." My chest tightened. "Ivy." "What are you talking about?" "Just watch him, Grandpa. Watch Daddy. You'll see." She pulled away suddenly. "I have to go. He'll be mad if we're late." She wouldn't say another word. The drive to Brad's house was silent. He was waiting on the front steps when we pulled up. "You're late," he said flatly. Ivy hurried toward the door, head down. Brad barely looked at her. "Go inside and start your homework." I stood on the sidewalk, something twisted in my gut. "Is everything okay with Ivy?" He shrugged. "She's fine. Hey, any chance you could send next year's payment early? Got some expenses coming up." Next year's payment? It was September. Forget it. January's fine. The door closed. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel. "Watch him," Ivy had said. $280,000 over 7 years. That was a lot of money for a man who barely said thank you. I drove home as the sun set. Willa's urn was sitting on my mantel downstairs. I'd kept it there for 7 years because I couldn't let go. Couldn't scatter her ashes like Gloria had wanted. I lay awake that night. What did Ivy mean? What was I supposed to see? The details of the accident never quite added up. How the damage had been so intense there was nothing left to identify. How Brad had been the one to confirm it was her. I'd never questioned it. But now, I started to wonder. What had I missed? I saw the woman who would change everything on a Tuesday morning. Tuesday mornings at Harper Family Market are predictable. But this woman wasn't a regular. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing an expensive leather jacket. She went straight to the coffee aisle. She placed a bag of ground coffee and a small jar of cinnamon on the counter. "That all for you?" I asked. "Yes." She handed me a 20 without looking up. As she passed me, something tugged at my memory. The way she moved. "Ma'am," I called. "Have we met before?" "I don't think so." She pushed through the door and left. 20 minutes later, I stepped outside to bring in a sign. That's when I saw her again. She stood across the street beside a silver sedan. And she wasn't alone. Brad was with her. They were talking. She touched his arm briefly and got into the driver's seat. Brad climbed into the passenger side and they drove away. Questions raced through my mind. Who was she? Why hadn't Brad ever mentioned her? Why did she buy just coffee and cinnamon? The combination unsettled me. I pulled out my phone and texted Roger Stevens, a retired detective, and my friend for 40 years. He knew how to read situations. He walked into my store 23 minutes later. "You look awful," he said. I told him everything. Ivy's warning at the park. The money. The mystery woman from this morning. Roger pulled out a small notebook. "Brad's never mentioned a woman, but you've been giving him 40 grand a year." Roger's tone was neutral. "Stephen, when's the last time Brad gave you an update on how that money is being used?" I couldn't answer. Brad had never sent receipts. "Ivy told you to stop sending money and to watch Brad," Roger said firmly. 7-year-olds don't say things like that unless something's wrong." "What do we do?" I asked. "We start simple. I've got surveillance equipment. We watch who comes and goes, see if the mystery woman shows up again." That evening, I spread 7 years of bank statements across my kitchen table. $280,000. And what did I have to show for it? No thank you notes. No updates. Just brief texts from Brad asking for the money early, every single November. I wrote down my questions on a legal pad. Where was the money going? Who was the woman? What was Ivy afraid of? I walked to the living room, where Willa's urn still sat on the mantel. "I'm trying, Willa," I whispered. For 7 years, I told myself I was once opening it meant accepting she was truly gone. But maybe, some part of me had known even then that something was wrong. The woman at the south store bought coffee and cinnamon. 2 items, nothing else. Standing there in the dim light, I finally understood. My hands shook as I looked at the brass ring on the mantel. It was about the size of a shoebox. I carried it to the kitchen table and set it down on the hard floor. I twisted the dreaded cap. It came off easily. Inside was plastic, tight twist. Through the plastic I could see velvet. It looked like ash. I untied the bag and peered inside. The powder was coarse, grainy. I reached in and let some run through my fingers. It felt wrong, too rough. Then I smelled it. Coffee. Not the sterile nothing of ash. Coffee. Rich, dark, unmistakable. My stomach turned. I inhaled deeper. Yes. Coffee. And something else underneath it. Something sweet and spicy. Cinnamon. The kitchen tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. "No," I whispered. I dumped the contents of the bag onto the table. Brown powder spilled. Out. I sifted through it with my fingers, searching for anything that looked like remains. Nothing. Just coffee, and mixed throughout. Flecks of reddish-brown. I touched one of the flecks to my tongue. Sweet, spicy, cinnamon. The powder wasn't ash. It was coffee grounds and baking spices. The exact items a woman with dark hair had bought from my store just this morning. For 7 years, I had kept this urn on my mantel. Gloria had stood here crying, kissing the cold brass, whispering goodbye to our daughter. She passed away with a broken heart. believing Willa's remains were resting above our fireplace. And it was. Coffee, kitchen scraps, a joke. The rage hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. I swept my arm across the table, sending the urn clattering to the floor. It rang hollow and mocking. "Damn you!" I shouted at the empty room. 7 years of grief. 7 years. Of honoring an empty promise. Paying money to a man who had helped fake my daughter's passing. Because that's what this was. If the urn was fake, then the funeral was fake. If the funeral was fake, then the body was fake. I picked up my phone and called Roger. He answered on the second ring. "Roger." My voice was shaking. "The urn is fake. It's coffee and cinnamon." Silence on the other end. "Stephen, don't touch anything else. I'm coming over right now." The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by coffee grounds, staring at the empty brass urn on the floor. They had handed me this urn and told me it was my daughter. I had believed them. My daughter's urn was a lie. What else had they lied about? My daughter was gone. I had mourned her for 7 long years. But as I stared at the grainy security footage on my friend's laptop, she was staring right back at me. Alive. Roger, my retired detective friend, had arrived at my house at 1 a.m. after I found the fake urn. He documented the coffee grounds and cinnamon and told me to get whatever sleep I could. By dawn, we were parked down the street from Brad's house, 2 old men in a gray sedan, waiting. For 3 days, we tracked his routine. He left at 7:45 a.m., came home at 6 p.m., but every other afternoon, the mystery woman in the leather jacket arrived in her silver sedan. She had a key. She would go inside, stay for 2 hours, and leave. But on the 4th morning, Brad broke his routine. He left at 10 a.m. We followed him from a distance, past the residential streets, past my grocery store, deep into the east side industrial district. He pulled into the front of a massive one-block brick warehouse, building 447. He unlocked the side entrance, went inside, and stayed for 45 minutes. "What is this place?" I asked. Roger tapped his notebook. "Storage, light manufacturing. We come back. We watch this place just like his house." The next morning, Roger brought his laptop to the kitchen. He had called in a favor with a friend on the force and pulled public traffic and nighttime footage from the street outside that warehouse. "Stephen, sit down," he said softly. The footage was black and white. A woman walked along the sidewalk toward the side entrance. As she moved, her face turned toward the camera. Dark hair, thin frame. That subtle tilt of the head. "No," I whispered. Roger ran it through a facial recognition program, comparing it to Willa's old driver's license. 97% match, Roger said gently. "Stephen, that's Willa." The room tilted. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. My daughter was alive. She was alive. And Brad was keeping her in that warehouse. The rage blinded me. I had paid him $280,000 to raise Ivy. He took my money. He let my wife pass away from grief. "We're going," I said, grabbing my coat. "We need a plan," Roger warned, but I couldn't wait. At 9 o'clock that night, we broke into the warehouse. The side door was unlocked. The inside was freezing. High ceilings, shadows, industrial debris. But in the back corner, someone had tried to make a home. A twin bed, a hot plate, and photos taped to the wall. Every single picture of Ivy I had ever sent Brad. Willa was sitting on the bed. She looked so different. Gaunt, exhausted, wearing clothes that hung off her like rags. "Dad," she whispered. "I lost it." "How could you? Your mother passed away thinking you were gone. She passed away from a broken heart." Willa slid down the wall, sobbing. "I never wanted this. I couldn't come back. I had to disappear." Roger stepped between us. "Willa, what happened? Why did you hide?" Through broken sobs, the darkest lie I had ever heard spilled out of her. 7 years ago, Willa had a terrible argument with her best friend, Natalie. Willa pushed her. Natalie fell, hit her head on a coffee table, and stopped moving. When Brad came home, he checked Natalie's pulse and told Willa she was gone. He told my daughter she would go to prison for the rest of her life. He told her she would lose Ivy. He said he had a cousin at the morgue, Willa cried. Someone who could provide a substitute for the accident. Brad faked the car crash. He told me to hide here until the police stopped looking. She had stayed in this freezing warehouse for 7 years, believing she was responsible for Natalie's terrible end, believing she was protecting her daughter from a criminal mother. Willa, Roger said carefully, did you check Natalie's pulse yourself? No. Brad did. Roger pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. A woman sitting at a coffee shop, smiling, healthy. This was taken 3 days ago, Roger said. That's Natalie. She's alive, Willa. Willa stared at the screen, the color draining from her face. The fight was staged, Roger explained. Brad and Natalie set you up. They used theatrical makeup. They made you panic. And once you were locked away, Brad collected $40,000 a year from me, I finished. My voice felt hollow. Roger swiped to another photo. It was Brad and Natalie, the mystery woman from my store. They were holding hands. They've been together for nearly 10 years, Roger said. Brad just transferred $60,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. They're planning to run 7 years. My daughter had been locked in a prison of guilt, while her husband and her best friend spent my money and lived in luxury. What do we do? Willa asked. Her tears stopped. A new, terrifying hardness settled in her eyes. We set a trap, Roger said. The next evening, Detective Kevin Walsh from the Fraud Division taped a tiny recording wire under Willa's collarbone. It would pick up everything within 15 feet. Roger and I sat in a car across the street with binoculars. Walsh's tactical team surrounded the building in unmarked vehicles. If things went wrong, Willa just had to say her daughter's name, Ivy, and the police would breach the doors. At 8:47 p.m., a silver sedan pulled up. Brad and Natalie stepped out and unlocked the warehouse. Willa, I brought you a surprise tonight, Brad called out, his voice echoing in my earpiece. Then, he stopped. You're not surprised. Willa's voice came through the wire, steady and cold as ice. I know everything, Brad. I know Natalie is alive. I know you lied to me for 7 years. There was a long silence. Then Natalie spoke. Her voice was careless, almost bored. How did you find out? Does it matter? It was just business, Willa. Business? Willa's voice cracked. You let my mother pass away from grief? For business? Your father's money, Brad chimed in, sounding proud. $280,000, paid for everything. My cousin at the morgue supplied the remains. The car fire did the rest, and your idiot father kept coffee grounds on his mantle for 7 years. My hands gripped the door handle. I wanted to tear him apart. Take me with you, Willa said suddenly. Brad laughed. Why would we do that? We don't need you. We fly to the Caymans tomorrow. Because if you leave me here, I'll talk. The temperature in the audio feed dropped instantly. Brad's voice turned lethal. You're a liability, Willa. You always have been. We can't risk you talking. So we'll just make sure you never say a word again. I heard a scuffle. Willa gasped. Let go of me. I didn't wait for the safe word. I kicked my car door open and sprinted across the lot. I hit the side entrance with my shoulder, the heavy metal door crashing open. Get away from my daughter, I roared. Brad froze, his hand gripping Willa's arm. Natalie dropped her keys. Before Brad could even process what was happening, the warehouse exploded with light and sound. Police! Hands up! Tactical officers flooded the room. Detective Walsh hit Brad so hard the man bounced off the concrete floor, his hands instantly yanked behind his back. The sharp click of handcuffs echoed through the silent warehouse. Natalie didn't run. She just raised her hands, looking mildly annoyed. Brad Wallace, Natalie Hughes, Walsh growled. You are under arrest for fraud, grand theft, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. She's lying, Brad shouted from the floor, his face pale with panic. She's unstable. She wanted to hide. Walsh held up the audio receiver. We recorded every word, Mr. Wallace. You just confessed to a federal offense on a police wire. You're completely finished. I crossed the room and pulled Willa into my arms. She collapsed against me, sobbing into my shoulder. 7 years of terror, finally over. We're going home, I whispered. You're safe. The trial took place 3 months later. It was a massacre. The prosecution played the crystal clear wire recording for the jury. They displayed the fake urn. They brought in Brad's cousin from the morgue, who flipped and testified against them for a plea deal. The financial records proved every single dollar they stole from me. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brad Wallace was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Natalie Hughes received 12. Brad's parental rights were permanently terminated, and the court granted me full custody of Ivy. Justice was served. Cold, absolute, and documented. 6 months have passed since the verdict. Willa lives in a beautiful apartment 10 minutes from my house. She manages the new cafe section at Harper Family Market. Slowly, patiently, with the help of professional therapists, she is rebuilding her relationship with Ivy. Just last week, I walked into the living room and saw them sitting together. Willa was braiding her daughter's hair. Ivy looked in the mirror, smiled, and said, "Thanks, Mom." I had to leave the room so they wouldn't see me cry. Revenge is a powerful motivator. When I found out what Brad did, I wanted to destroy him with my bare hands. But true victory wasn't just putting him in a cage. True victory was taking back the life he tried to steal from us. We didn't just survive them, we replaced them. And this time, nobody is ever taking my family away again.